Welcome to the Empowered Soul Podcast, a cozy audio nest of soulful musings and heart-made creations. If you're a mystical soul craving connection and inspiration, you've found your flock. Hi, I am MC Mama Bird, a mama, artist, soul regression therapist in training, and longtime yoga and meditation guide, sharing stories, conversations, and everyday magic for your soul and your family. Now take a deep breath and stretch your wings wide to enjoy the ride. Welcome back, beautiful soul. Today's episode is an integration, a continuation of what we explored in episode 43, weaving together the astrology and numerology of Aries, Taurus, and the 5 energy of April, along with some deeper reflections that have been landing for me recently. There's a lot here to sit with, to contemplate, and to feel into. Before we dive in, though, I want to share something with you. There's a moment in this episode, a realization that might feel a little uncomfortable at first, but it has the power to completely shift the way you see your life, your patterns, and even the challenges you're moving through right now. We're talking about truth, the kind you already know and feel in your body, the kind you can't unknow once you see it. And by the end of this episode, I'm going to invite you into a question, one that might just change everything for you. So stay with me. This one is going to land. Here's something I can't ignore lately. The word ease keeps showing up everywhere. In things I read, in conversations, in things I hear, in podcasts, and shows that I follow, over and over again, especially through this monumental Aries season. And it just doesn't feel random. It's starting to feel like this is a message. It's an invitation, a balance to the Aries fire and the intense energies, to soften, to allow, and to trust more. And I wonder, have you been noticing this too in your own life? Is there a word, a theme, or a feeling that keeps resurfacing for you, almost like a broken record? Because those patterns aren't accidents. They're guidance, signals, little nudges from your higher self or your spirit team, from something deeper within you that is always communicating. So pay attention to that and let me know. What word is finding you lately? What energy keeps circling back? And instead of brushing past it, flow with it. Get curious, because there might be a message there, something you're being asked to embody, something you already know, something you're already resonating with, and maybe even becoming. And for me, this has been showing up in a very real and personal way. One thing I've been tracking and noticing in my soul regression studies and this very profound journey that I'm in is that a lot of downloads are coming through more easily, maybe even just a little more smoothly. I'm tuning myself and becoming more receptive to the information that wants to reach my heart. The channels feel more empty, more open, and greased up, so to speak, with all this inner work. And what I've noticed is that this kind of opening, it doesn't just happen. It requires you to be under your own inspection light, observing yourself. Because integrity is so important. And I've had to ask myself honestly, what would be the point of doing this work, of studying all of this, if I'm not applying it into my life, into the little details of my life too? Not with aggression and being judgmental on myself, but becoming the observer with compassion. And that question has changed how I show up. It has motivated me to study my reactions, to come closer to my ego, and not to reject it, but to understand it. And at the same time, to deepen my connection with my higher soul self. And through that, a lot of intuitive and even psychic information has been coming through, to the point where sometimes I feel like I am accessing information as if I am in a soul regression therapy session or even a psychic medium reading. And recently I had this moment. I had a visual of a family's constellation of all their astrological signs. And I started remembering the personalities of these people and the struggles we've had, and also the rewarding and beautiful connections we've experienced. And when I looked at it from that perspective, something shifted. There was more compassion, more understanding, and more empathy for all the difficulties we had, and for the healing that is taking place, even when it's subconscious, even when it's not intentional. And I started to see the deeper reasons why we are in each other's lives. What our triggers bring, what our energetic connections are here to activate, how they prompt inner evolution and soul growth. And I really believe that these ties have been going on through lifetimes here and there. Because another thing is that we often think of family as this place of love and unity, smiles, laughter, everything's going well, peace and love, ha ha ha, yay yay yay. But that's not always the full truth. Sometimes that's just the surface, and underneath there can be tensions we just don't see, or even tensions that the person themselves have suppressed. But it feels just too much to process, or to open up the can, to take the lid off. And really, what do we truly know about someone else's journey? And honestly, it's not our business anyway. But this is what has shifted for me. It was seeing it through a different lens, through a divine lens, through karma and dharma, through lifetimes, through our soul purposes, and also as blessings in disguise, even and especially when it was hard. And from that perspective, it all makes sense. Why we came together when we did, why at times life has drifted us in different directions. As humans, we like to crystallize things. We want things to stay the same, to stay in that status quo. But life doesn't work like that. Things come together and things fall apart. I say this phrase a lot in my podcasts, and It comes from Pema Chodron, and truly it's a phrase that has stayed for me forever in finding the compassion and the understanding and empathy of the ebb and flow of life. That it's all part of a rhythmic journey. Sometimes the contracts are complete. Sometimes lessons need to be processed on our own, independently. And sometimes some things may not be healed or fully understood in this lifetime. And from the soul lens, that's okay, because that's free will. And at the end of the day, the only thing we are responsible for is our part, cleaning our side of the road and knowing I left it good. I can carry on with my dignity, with my self-respect, and with gratitude. Real gratitude for the experience and for everything it has taught me. So I bow to these souls because they are my teachers. And in many opportunities that I have had to connect with some of these souls, I've often said, thank you, I'm sorry, I love you. So there's something, maybe you haven't said it out loud yet. Maybe you've softened it, reasoned it, or told yourself, I'll come back to this later. But somewhere in your body, you already know. And what I'm learning and really feeling is that the truth is not the enemy, and neither is the messenger. The ego wants comfort, but the soul wants congruence. And those truths that feel so inconvenient, ignoring them doesn't make them go away. It just makes everything feel so heavy. And we lose prana and energy over it. But the moment you stop negotiating with what you know, something shifts. Your energy comes back. Not because everything suddenly becomes easy, but because you're no longer spending yourself avoiding what's real and true for you and the moment. And that's what freedom is. Not the absence of discomfort, but the presence of integrity. Your soul and your spiritual team isn't being hard on you or punishing you. Quite the opposite. It's patient and loving and encouraging you, cheering you on. They know how hard this incarnation is, and they're just waiting for you to come home to yourself again and again. I love all of this that I've been learning recently in my Kabbalah classes, and this one really hit home today. When God wants to make you David, he will send you a Goliath. That arrived just on time for me. I don't know about you. When these moments arrive and you just feel that gut instinct and your gut just turning upside down or inside out over a tension or misunderstanding or miscommunication, it feels so painful and so uncomfortable. But it is all the fine-tuning process, the journey of strengthening ourselves. And here's what I've learned: self-advocacy, self-respect, clear and clean boundaries, communicated firmly and kindly. So when these moments arrive, pause, ground, feel your body, breathe, and return to your coherence. Go sit outside and take the sun in. Your skin are solar panels. Sit on the grass. Feel the coherence of the earth, the Schumann resonance. Listen to the birds chirp, that beautiful free orchestra and symphony right outside your door and window. The nature that is always there, welcoming you with open arms, with an invitation of happiness that you're back. When something doesn't feel right, it just doesn't sit or land well, whether it's that email, that text, that conversation, that dialogue, probably is because it isn't, but it is asking us to pause, question, process, give yourself that little time to integrate and process it out. You're so worthy of that pause. It doesn't have to be for a long time. It can just be a quick walk in nature, a talk with your inner child and your higher self. I love talking to God and venting to Him and my spirit team. I ask them for help, for clarity. Ask them to align the situation, to bring more clarity and light into whatever the struggle or tension that is arising. You are where your attention is. I want to place it in a solution. I am trusting with certainty that truth and alignment will guide me in this situation. We are always guided, directed, and protected. Look around you. We are swimming in answered prayers. Everything is okay and will be okay. In fact, more than okay. The knowing is in the doing, trusting the process and the journey. Now, at first, our inner child or ego may not let our insight be that way, but with our patience, willpower, and perseverance, our perspectives can shift. And that is the miracle, not outside, but straight within. Gratitude for how it contributed to my soul's growth in this ever-going, everlasting journey. And all of this has also deepened something I really truly believe. I think we all possess intuition, and therefore we are all psychic. It's not something outside of us. It's something we access, we activate, we practice and learn to trust, especially once we start to connect the dots and see the patterns. And from that place, especially if there's a struggle or tension, we can heal the situation by sending out the resolution vibrations and imagining and picturing the bright skies and the wings stretch wide for solutions and the dissolution of problems and disagreements and misunderstandings. That we will realign in truth and integrity together. That's my vision. When I slow down, when I listen, when I give myself that self-care, that self-love, to actually notice what my higher self and my guides and my spirit team are trying to show me, right? And something our spirit teams are always trying to show us over and over again is how to guide ourselves through feeling, through emotion, without needing words. That's the message I've been getting recently from my spirit team and my higher self. Don't guide yourself with words. They can imprison you. They create more judgment, and they make us overanalyze. But when you guide yourself with that inner compass towards feeling is immediate, very quickly assimilated, understood. It's like when you touch a hot burner, you don't stop and think about it and name it. You don't need words. You just know, I gotta move my hand out of this thing. And that's how I've started to see intuition. You just know. You just feel. And through all your multiple various senses, you don't need to process it. You don't need to explain it over and over again. You simply move, and that's that. And that's how we can continue to develop our intuition, by listening to our feelings. And once you start to see the connections, you can't unsee it. It just avalanches and grows from there. So from this place, from slowing down, from listening, from beginning to trust our inner knowing without needing to over-explain ourselves or anything, we can actually start to see ourselves more clearly. So let's take a slow, deep breath together. Let's close our eyes for this portion, or keep them open with a journal or a pen handy, or simply listen. It's up to you, truly. But let's just take a moment to just pause and feel that breath coming in and out, moving like a beautiful accordion, making that gorgeous sound of your unique breath, your unique life. Oh, I really needed that breath, that fully letting go. It was a big morning today. Let's honor ourselves. Let's congratulate ourselves for how far we have come. Gently think back to the beginning of March, for example, just before the March equinox. And maybe even just a little further to January 1st of this year. Taking a short inventory. Because when you really pause and look, you start to remember that change is the only constant. It's happening all the time. Molecularly, atomically, subatomically, your body is regenerating constantly. Your organs, your cells, every hour, every week, every month. So now, take a little inventory somewhere. Maybe it was your state of mind, your emotions, your personal growth, a consciousness shift. Who were you then? And now, who are you today and this moment? The day hasn't ended. You will be different by the end of the day too. Look at the external circumstances. Do they look the same? Something inside of you has shifted. Maybe you see wider or further out. Maybe you trust more. Maybe you brace less. And sometimes these little miracles aren't loud, with a lot of fireworks, with big dramatic external events. Sometimes they're just quiet and subtle, like a subtle shift in awareness. It's a feeling that something is aligning, even if it took some work to get to the alignment and some discomfort. That was a reorganization. Maybe it's a deep sense of confidence or a little more surrender and trust, and trusting in the flow. And knowing that you are exactly where you're meant to be. Not sometimes, but always. You are the miracle. The miracle is you. You've practiced curiosity. You've practiced trust and certainty. You've practiced letting go. And that alone changes everything. Even if 5, 10, 20% more. So take this moment and recognize the transformation that has already begun within you. Hug yourself. Let your hands softly rub up and down your arms lovingly, as if giving yourself the sweetest, most loving hug and rub and embrace, as if you would your child or best friend or someone you love who is asking for some support. Hug yourself with healthy ego strength, with pride in your bravery, a healthy pride. Because this is not small work, and this is not easy. This is the path of the true warrior. It is always easier and an option available to go back to sleep. But you can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unspill the spilled milk. So ask yourself, what internal shift lately feels like a miracle in and of itself? Because you're not the same person who started March, let alone January. You are already in a new version of yourself. As we step into this new year, this new portal from the March equinox, as we climb the ladder towards the June solstice, wow, more change is coming, and it feels like it's compounding faster as the hours of daylight lengthen in the northern hemisphere. So take another breath, because there's something else here, and that is joy. Joy is often treated like a reward, something we wait for, something we earn. But what if joy is actually a practice? And one of my mentors, someone very special in my life, always says, she's happy for no reason. And that stayed with me. Because what if today we can just choose joy and stay in it? Before the reason, before the confirmation, before the outcome. And that no matter how difficult it is, that we can trust that this will feed us with wisdom and soul growth, so we can stay curious, wondering, how will this turn up? Without needing to control the outcome and giving it a lot of beautiful hope for resolution and solutions, rather than focusing on the problem. What if we smiled before there was something to smile about? And what if you offered gratitude before anything had fully manifested into form from your mind's eye? If we truly tuned in, every breath alone is a gift, and so much to be grateful and joyful for. I sometimes hear the voice of my mom saying, what I would give for another day to just hug you and be near you. So what if you planted hope before the proof arrived? Because isn't it already alive in your dreams and your visions? Doesn't that count? Are dreams any less real than what we call this physical 3D reality? Because joy, satisfaction, contentment, gratitude, they shift your energy. And when your energy shifts, your perception widens. And when your perception widens, your vessel expands, your consciousness lifts, and your entire reality begins to uplift. I trust. I am abundant. I welcome abundant. I don't get caught up in the mental loops of dollars here and dollars there. I trust. It will all be funded. It will all be taken care of. It will all align. Through the misunderstandings, through the gray zones, through the unknowns, it is all coming towards clarity and alignment. Your entire reality is beginning to uplift, along with your community, the earth, and beyond, because everything is entangled, and miracles reveal themselves more easily when we are open and receptive and welcoming. We are expecting them. You're allowed to feel good without earning it. You can let joy lead. You can notice small little delights throughout your day all around you, and doing this multiple times a day raises your frequency. So ask yourself, what simple choice today could raise your energy, even just a little bit? 5%, a wider smile. Joy isn't the reward, it's part of the path. Now imagine your life as a film. Are you watching from the sidelines, or are you stepping fully into the frame? You didn't come here to play small or live under a rock. You're not here to wait for a permission slip. You're here to participate and co-create and lead from your heart and your soul. Because hidden miracles reveal themselves when we step forward, when someone says yes, when someone chooses courage over comfort, over fear of the unknown. You get to decide your role, because on planet Earth, there is free will. So take that one bold little step, micro attunements, an aligned action today. Not later, not when everything is perfect. Now, what small, courageous little step would your future self thank you for? Because your life responds when you step into it fully. So today, let's breathe. That sounds really good to me. Let's notice. Let's step forward. Let joy lead. It'll all work out. It will all come to a solution. It'll all be resolved. Truth, love, and light always win. Integrity and transparency are part of my essence, and I let curiosity guide. Let courage open the next chapter. So if you had your eyes closed, gently come back to your beautiful surroundings. Open your eyes to the beauty that is all around you. find something that you're grateful for right now near you. And perhaps you can find an inner smile or a soft turning of your lips and cheeks, forming a physical smile. And this short meditation actually connects to something I came across recently. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. And I want to share it with you in a really simple and grounded way, because it actually ties back to everything we've been talking about: energy, coherence, alignment. We've all been taught that the body works like a chemical machine, right? Hormones, reactions, neurons firing, like everything is just molecules bumping into each other. And of course that is true. But what if that's only part of the story? And what if underneath all of that, there is also an energy communication system happening inside our cells and mitochondria? There's some really cool research going on that suggests that our cells may actually be communicating through three things: light, vibration, and electrical energy. Almost like three different languages that can translate into each other. So instead of everything moving slowly through chemistry, there may also be a faster, more fluid system going on in our cells, like an internal Wi-Fi, helping the body coordinate and respond and stay in rhythm. And I want you to picture this. Inside your body, your cells are not just reacting. They are listening, sensing tiny pulses of light, subtle vibrations, gentle electrical flows, all constantly communicating and adjusting and responding. And this part really stayed with me, because from this perspective, health is not just about fixing something that's broken. It's about rhythm and coherence, like an orchestra, when everything is in sync. When the timing is right, when the signals are flowing together, there is harmony. There is ease. There's that word again. And life moves the way it's meant to. But when the rhythm is disrupted, even slightly, we feel it as stress and fatigue and disconnection. And suddenly, so many things we're naturally drawn to start to make sense. For example, sound healing, music, breath, light, nature. These aren't random. They are rhythmic. They are vibrational. They are regulating and medicinal and healing. It's not about adding more. Maybe it's about remembering and adding less and coming down to the simpler things in life that brings us into joy and higher frequency, vibration, and coherence. Remembering the rhythm that is already within us and gently returning to it. So this invites a powerful question. What if your body is not something to fix, but something to tune gently? I will leave the article that this inspiration came from in the show notes so that you can dig in. I thought it was really cool. So this question of tuning, of coherence, of rhythm, it doesn't just apply to the body. It also brings us into something that has been circling in my mind for quite some time now. As I continue learning, reading and studying and meditating and listening inwardly to my higher self, there is a message that keeps coming up again and again. And it's this idea that we often hear, that the mind and the ego are a problem, that they are obstacles, that they're noisy, controlling, and restrictive, and that it's best not to listen to them at all. And I think in some ways, yeah, that can be true sometimes. But in many other ways, I feel like the picture is much more nuanced than that. Because when I step back, when I really zoom out, beyond the daily worries, the mental chatter, the personal stories, the conflicts, tensions, and I look at life from a much wider lens, like let's zoom out all the way to the galactic point of view, something really beautiful and extraordinary begins to appear. That the mind and the brain, they are not accidents. They are incredibly sophisticated instruments. They are part of the miraculous equipment that consciousness itself has developed and needed and wanted and desired through the unfolding of life. Through billions of years of feedback loops, experimentation, adaptation, life has evolved from simple cells into complex organisms, organs, bodies, into this human experience we now inhabit. And not just us, but countless other living, sentient expressions and beings beyond what we can even imagine. So from that perspective, it becomes harder for me to say that the mind and the ego are the problem, or that they are things we should reject or silence or ignore. To me, they are tools, and powerful tools, but tools that require care, cleaning, polishing, and training, and understanding, just like a musical instrument that needs tuning, or like a piece of technology that comes with a manual we haven't even begun to read. Because when we begin to understand how these instruments work, they can become the best, most incredible allies in our awakening, in our creative journey. Now, the ego, and especially the ego, is something I've come to see with much more compassion. Because rather than an enemy, I often experience the ego like a child. And children are naturally self-focused. Everything revolves around them. They think it's their fault, or because of them, the world revolves around them. Their awareness is still developing. Just like when a child throws a tantrum. It's not because they're bad, it's because they need something. Attention, comfort, safety, understanding. And the ego is not different than that. It cries out, it wants to be right, it wants to be seen, it wants to be heard. And instead of rejecting it, or shaming it, or suppressing it, what if we had a conversation with it? What if we gave it what it really needs? Some attention, TLC, presence, some loving guidance and reassurance. Because in many ways, tending to the ego is parenting ourselves, reparenting ourselves. So when the ego flares up, instead of pushing it away, we pause and we take that little break under the sun that we talked about earlier, and we ask, okay, what's happening here? What are you trying to tell me? What are you afraid of? What do you need right now? Just sitting down for a few minutes and listening inwardly, it can shift everything. I often imagine speaking to that part of myself the way I would speak to my child. Come here now. Tell me what's going on. I'm listening. And through that kind of inquiry, something softens. And this is one of the reasons why the work of Byron Katie has really resonated so deeply with me. The practice of inquiry, especially when paired with meditation. It gently leads us to the roots of our thoughts, our fears, our worries, our beliefs, our ego, our adult tantrums. And when we truly examine those stories, something interesting happens. Sometimes they simply release us. It's true we could release them, but I love how Byron Katie says it. The stories let us go, because when our consciousness shifts, our frequency shifts. And the stories that once felt really tight and binding to us, and it felt so true, they no longer click into place the same way. It's like puzzle pieces that used to fit together, suddenly they don't. And the old patterns have frequencies also, and we no longer tune to them like a radio station. The energies have shifted from within, and the pattern and vibration of those thoughts. We have basically graduated from that level because we've changed. And that old piece, it just falls away. And this is so much more gentle and not aggressive than getting rid of something. I mean, do we truly get rid of stuff? Or have we simply moved their location, like pushed it away from us or stuffed it underneath our organs? The true healing is gentle, patient, and kind. And this is where the heart, the soul, and our intuition become such important guides. They are like the shaded trees along the path, places where we can pause and rest and find refuge, to drink from something deeper. And this doesn't mean that the mind and ego have no wisdom, because they do. They exist for a reason. In psychology, for example, there is even the concept of ego strength, something some of my soul regression teachers have spoken about in the context of soul work. A healthy ego can help us move through life with resilience, with some clarity and balance too. The challenge is life is fast and full, and it becomes real easy for the mind and ego to fall into untrained patterns and reactive mental loops, stories, knee-jerk reactions. They are like energetic puppies that haven't been trained yet. But the answer isn't rejection. The answer is relationship, conversation, retraining, education, meditation, nature. The practices that reconnect us to our deeper selves. During my years studying in the Shambhala tradition, there is a teaching that has stayed with me too. The idea that we already possess basic goodness. As Sakyo Mipham says, in spite of the extreme hardship and cruelty we see happening throughout the world, the basis of everything is completely pure and good. Our heart and mind are inherently awake. This basic goodness is a quality of complete wholesomeness. That teaching always moved me deeply because it reminds us that underneath all the chatter and the noise, the confusion, the deep conditioning, there is something fundamentally good already within us. And through these practices of meditation, what Shambhala calls peaceful abiding, we begin to train the mind in stability, clarity, strength, so that the mind stops running our life unconsciously and becomes something we can work with consciously towards beauty, harmony, co-creation. And it's like finally reading the manual for a powerful instrument, like being handed a Tesla or a high-end sound system and realizing we've only been using a little fraction of its potential. Because when we understand the mind, we begin to understand our life, and that changes everything. Because at the deepest level, we're not just our thoughts. We are awareness itself, experiencing itself through this unique point of view that is you. From one lens, we are bodies and personalities living everyday life, but from another lens, a more microscopic and cosmic one, we are fields of energy. Oscillations, expressions of the field itself, and both are true. It just depends on the lens we choose to see through. And maybe this moment we are in right now, this season of rebirth, this time associated with the renewal across so many traditions, is inviting us into an inner exodus, an exodus from old patterns, from fear-based stories, from reactive living, and into something deeper, into spiritual maturity, into remembering the miracle of what we are. The miracle is us, not perfect, but evolving, expressions of something divine. So maybe our work is not to fight the mind or exile the ego, but to properly train them, educate them, guide them, love them, listen to them, doing the work, that work of Byron Katie that I keep talking about, that is gold. To work with our vision instead of against it. And training them to work with our vision instead of against it. And when we do that, it's like all the switches are turned on and something beautiful happens. We are maxing our capacity, our full capacity in what we're truly made of. Body, mind, heart, soul, they all begin to move into coherence. The tension softens. The stories loosen. Can you imagine the ego actually being happy and jumping up and down in joy? It's possible. I really think so. You know that when you feel your inner child just crying of joy, those moments, falling in love, watching your child grow, and all the problems of the world just fall away. And we return again and again to that quiet place within, where our deepest wisdom lives. And from that place, we remember we're not just here to react and accumulate stuff. We're not here to live out old conditioning. We're not here to live in the past either, but to co-create, to co-evolve with life, with each other, with the universe itself, to grow, to heal, to transform, evolve, and be at service to one another in this very powerful time. We contribute our unique expression to the unfolding. And the more we understand ourselves, the more the mind can actually work for us. The mind is workable. It's pliable. We have neuroplasticity working towards us. If we want to cultivate compassion, love, clarity, that is something we can train like we do for a marathon. And this brings me back to something I learned in Shambhala also, that joy is a practice. There's this beautiful metaphor in Shambhala that brings wisdom into life. It's like bringing a flower and a rock together. The flower represents compassion, wisdom, joy. The rock represents the solidity of a confused, bewildered mind. And if we want them to come together, we have to create the conditions. We have to soften, prepare the soil, till the garden, just like we train the mind through meditation, inquiry, prayer, we create the space for something to grow. And then we cultivate it. And as we do that within ourselves, we begin to create something larger. A kind of community garden, a collective shift, a culture that can hold both modern life and deeper awareness, that supports not just us, but the world, the planet, and maybe even what comes next in these new high technological changing life. And we do it with joy, openness, curiosity, and awakening. That is where the rock and the flower meet. And maybe that is exactly why the season feels so alive right now. Because once we start understanding that the mind is workable, that the ego can be loved and educated, that joy is a practice, that we are shaping the inner soil for something more awake to grow, then we can begin to understand why certain times of the year carry such a powerful, energetic vibration and invitation. We are in Aries season, the first month of the zodiac, the beginning, the spark, and you can feel it. Things completing, contracts expiring, chapters closing, not randomly, just right on time. Nature is doing its thing. Spring is arriving in the north, fall in the south, and we're being invited into truth and renewal. Aries in Hebrew is Nisan. Nis means miracle. This is the month of freedom and miracles. The kind of breakthroughs that feel electrified. The kind where what once felt impossible suddenly isn't. And you've got the strength, courage, and tenacity of Aries to back you up. And this isn't a new idea. This energy reaches all the way back to the Exodus, the splitting of the sea, a massive, undeniable miracle that, interestingly, some esoteric researchers have explored as possibly involving the Ark of the Covenant, perhaps even as a kind of device or technology that worked with the fluid plasma dynamics of the field from advanced ancient civilizations. Pretty mysterious, huh? But the question for us today is not just what happened then, but what does that actually mean for us today, right now? Egypt, or Mitzrayim, literally means narrowness, constriction. So the Exodus is not just a story. It's a pattern and a daily invitation for our transformation. It's like a code, an energetic code, moving from constriction to freedom, from ego to soul consciousness. Or how about elevating, inviting the ego towards the soul consciousness vibration, the ego graduating into spiritual maturity, from performing to just being you. And that really hits. How many of us are walking around in what some call the somebody suit? This version of us that isn't fully true. The mask, the performance, the actor. We wear it anyway. And it's depleting and exhausting. Always having to refer back to the mask and the performance. Double and triple checking our texts, our emails. Wondering how others will interpret us. Trying to fit in, trying to be seen, trying to be praised. Because we want love, attention, and approval. Chronic stress isn't just doing too much. It's about being out of alignment with your true self. It's that quiet knowing, this isn't me. And at the end of life, the deepest regret is usually not, I didn't achieve enough. It's that I didn't live life on my own terms or with my truth and authenticity. So what again if the miracle isn't something outside of you changing? It's already here, because the real you is already here, and you were born that way. And it's about something shifting inside of you to step into the real you without this feeling of judgment and fear and I'm risking it all. Your consciousness, your perspective, your point of view, that's where the miracle is. The moment your perception shifts, everything shifts like a domino effect. You wake up, maybe you feel crunchy, maybe your mind is already loud. And instead of going straight into that noise, hand on heart. And these are the things I've been learning from my Kabbalah classes. And they're such powerful initiations and meditations. And you say, I choose to live aligned with my soul, with my higher self. And I do so with gratitude. That's it. That's the work. Not killing the ego. The ego isn't bad. There is strength there. But letting your heart and soul and wisdom lead and teach the ego. And turning them, the mind and the ego, as allies. Can you befriend your ego and mind so they work for your higher divine purposes? Because real power will not push and it will not shout. It is quiet, aligned, gentle, certain. And in Aries energy, you start to feel this very clearly. You got that energy backing you up for your visions and dreams, moving towards this freedom. The mind can feel like construction noise, as my mentor Kathy says. This constant hammering. It's reactive, it's loud. And freedom is unhooking from that. It's not being enslaved to every thought, every trigger, every mood in your environment. And it's checking back in with your mind and your ego, giving it direction, moving towards the direction of love and joy. If our entire day is reactions after reactions, it's really exhausting. The traffic, someone else's energy, the circumstances shifted, and it depletes your power. That's not true power, and it's no longer coherent when we live our lives that way. The power is being so connected to the higher vibrations of the heart, your soul, your faith, that your energy itself creates alignment. And that whole realigning process is the miracle. That your presence splits the sea, not just for you, but for everyone around you. The exodus is every single one of us every day, setting ourselves free in every moment. We take the time out, we self-care, we do that little sun bath, listen to ourselves, calm our mind and ego. We care for our well-being. We unhook from that hammering of the unquestioned and unattended ego and mind. And from that place, we start to be free. We no longer need to be walking around with shields and armor to protect anything. We no longer fall for that dividing, protecting schemes of the untrained, undisciplined, unloved, and unattended ego. And instead, we become like a sunflower. We radiate. You project the beauty of your heart and soul out into the world. You are the magnet, the traffic stopper, the light in the room. You are the master and the teacher. Humble too, because you bow to the situations around you as opportunities to learn from, opportunities to stash into your wisdom belt. Not arrogant power, confident power, self-loving power, the power of someone who knows her truth because she has done the work. She has clocked in. She's not bouncing around off of others. You are the poem. The Mary Oliver poem. You're like the butterfly laying under the sun, receiving and trusting, making your day a sanctuary and drinking your life and pouring into your vessel because the miracles are in plain sight and they're available to you. And this is where it all started to expand even more for me from all these teachings I've been receiving, and I'm integrating them and sharing them with you. And I really sat with this question. Ready? What is matter? Because we grow up thinking we live in a material world. Solid things, physical reality, that's what's real, that isn't. But when you actually look deeper through unified physics, through these equations, it says something completely different. There's no such thing as a purely materialistic view. Matter isn't really a thing. What it actually is an entanglement network of information, a flow of information through a field. So when we say something is matter, what we're really seeing is the field organizing itself into these little regions that have boundaries that we call particles. But they're not objects like billiard balls floating around. In essence, they're electrostatic patterns in the field in space with spin and angular momentum. An electrostatic field defining a region that we perceive as a particle. But it's not a thing. It's always the field. And even the energy that produces that field comes from that space itself. From the spin, the angular momentum, it just keeps the gear spinning. Which is wild because it means what we thought was empty space, is actually everything. The question becomes, what started it all? What is the source of reality? And what starts to emerge is this idea of fractal divisions of space. From the infinitely small to the infinitely large, subatomic particles forming protons, electrons, then stars, galaxies, supercluster universes upon universes like Russian dolls nested within each other, infinities within infinities. The mathematician Cantor described an infinite amount of infinities. And it actually makes sense when you think about fractals. You can take any boundary and divide it infinitely, and still there is another boundary. So you have infinite divisions, creating infinite structures. And all of these divisions are interacting with each other, driving each other like gears spinning. And I love this visual. It really clicked for me. It's like when you have small changes in air pressure, just a few degrees different between hot and cold, and then you have a hurricane. Massive movement, energy, electric discharge, even high energy physics happening inside of it. So imagine that, but on a universal scale. The universe is a kind of fluid, the plasma gas-like fluid, where the density shifts from infinitely dense to less dense, and that difference creates the motion and the spin, and that spin is where the energy comes from. Everything is basically spinning itself into existence. And then you go even deeper, energy and information are equivalent. The position of a particle, that's information. The state of a particle, that's information. Its angular momentum is information. Every single bit is information, which means space itself is made of bits of information. Tiny oscillating units at a scale so small we can't even comprehend it. That's what's called the Planck scale. And to even try to grasp how small it is, say you took something as the Planck scale and expanded it to the size of a grain of sand. The proton, something already unbelievably tiny, would suddenly be the size of the distance between our sun and Alpha Centauri, which is something like 40 trillion kilometers away. And all those little Planck oscillators are inside a proton. I mean, that's how far removed this level of reality is from our everyday perception. We just don't see it, we don't feel it, but it's there. And these tiny bits are fluctuating, oscillating, moving together in coherence, like trillions upon trillions of particles forming this kind of vortex, a spinning, organized flow. In that region of coherence, that's what we call a proton. And so these equations actually give accurate answers for energy and for size of things. We don't need any more dark matter or dark energy because everything is described in a completely different way. Not as solid objects, but as fluid dynamics of space. As an ongoing exchange of information across all the scales. From the smallest fluctuations to the largest cosmic structures. So you can start to think of the material world as a kind of superhighway of information and energy. The universe thinking. And as this information becomes more complex, particles come together, form cells, cells divide, and eventually the flow of information becomes so rich that it becomes self-aware and consciousness emerges. The universe becoming aware of itself through this biofeedback looping mechanics of it, as in like the picture of a Taurus with energy and particles coming out, feeding information into the universe and coming back in towards the center channel of the Taurus, information to be processed, and so on and so forth. This is the dynamics of giving and receiving, of exchanging of information towards evolution. And this is all happening through us, and everything that is pulsating, everything is made from the field. We can't be anything but the field. And this is where everything started to shift for me. So the danger is that we are thinking that we're separate, that we're an isolated experience, that we're not part of the whole system. That's what's happening to so many of us. And sometimes in some philosophies, it's been assumed that consciousness is just a random accident, that somehow we just became aware out of nowhere. But through these equations and unified physics, consciousness is not a fluke. It's a fundamental property of reality itself and the dynamics of the field in the universe. It's the result of the mechanics of information flowing through the structure of space, a coordinated unfolding. And it's designed to eventually know itself, which means you are not separate from the universe. You are an expression and an extension of it, and from the space that isn't empty at all, and that it's the cradle of all reality, material, and existence. And that we are part of this vast interconnected network of information. And because of that, you are connected to information that is not just local. You have access to non-local information. And then intuition doesn't feel abstract. It's natural. It's the expression and the effect from this interconnected, entangled mechanism of the field of the universe itself. All right. This feels like a really good place to pause. Let this land. And in the next episode that follows this one, I'm going to publish them back to back because I want them to follow each other. So the next episode will have a continuation of what we just talked about. And we're going to continue to integrate some of the topics that we just talked about now too, including the unified physics perspective from my favorite quantum physicist, Nassim Haramein. I'll leave links in the description in the show notes if you want to pursue this further on your own. I constantly study from him, take notes, and think it's so fascinating and mind-blowing that I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to share this on the show. So we'll continue to tie and integrate everything discussed plus some more stuff in the following episode. I love doing things in bite sizes, and quite frankly, it's my style. I mean, it's very hard for me to do short episodes. I do them sometimes, but it is my style. And we'll just integrate and process more then and continue the journey. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll see you in the next one. And until then, keep blooming exactly as you are and who you are becoming. Much love, everyone. Namaste. Thank you for listening to the Empowered Soul podcast. If this episode touched your heart, I'd love for you to follow the show and share it with someone you love. Stay connected with us on Instagram, explore our website and blog, visit our YouTube channel, and discover more soulful creations here. healtruelove.com/links. Until next time, keep blooming exactly as you are and who you are becoming.